today with Yassmin Abdel-Magied. Yasmin?
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, lovely to see you again.
Yeah.
Can I ask, before we talk about you, just from the moment you and I first met a while back, it always struck me your vivaciousness of Lump for Life.
Oh,
Like, when you stand up on stage, is that like do you just enjoy being on stage because actually it gives you a chance to be yourself?
Yeah, it's funny actually. I think I'm fortunate that I can do lots of different things in life, and I'm both someone that's into science and into arts and so on. But there is something about being on stage, that communication with an audience, really feeling the vibe in a room. I don't know, I think maybe there's a little bit of a performer, a thespian in me, maybe. Just that, all the videos of me as a child are me like performing some sort of music very badly to my family.
So we're just feeding.
Yeah, exactly. It's great.
So listen, you mentioned it before, you're multifaceted, but just talking a bit about STEM, obviously you're in engineering. How, and it's ebbed and waved in terms of people talking about STEM. Where are we on the journey?
It's a good question, because I think, with all the conversations around tech and AI and the future of work and all of this, all of these things are powered by science and technology, but we don't necessarily always put them in the box of traditional STEM, I think. And I think that's quite interesting. I also think when I first started working, when I first started studying engineering, working engineering, women in STEM was a big thing, and that continues to be a big thing. But also we're now thinking about, bias and, other types of diversity, whether it's neurodiversity or ethnic or even where in the world you are, like physically. So I think the idea of STEM broadly and the challenges of getting different human beings in the world of STEM kind of continues. But the way that we're thinking about it isn't just about the people themselves, but also about, what are the implications of having, different types of people working in these industries? Are we being able to tackle, bias? Are we able to tackle some of the more structural stuff?
And has it spread out? When you say we, are you talking about the wider population, or are you talking about people who are looking at it?
Yeah, great question. I wouldn't say the wider population is necessarily where this conversation is at. I think when I'm thinking about I'm thinking about decision makers in organizations. I'm thinking about folks that are strategically considering where their company wants to go. I think personally, I'm always interested in broadening the conversation, because I think it shouldn't just be a small group of people, wherever the group of people are, it shouldn't just be a small group of people, thinking about these things. We're all implicated in the changes in technology. We're all affected by it. So how can we all be part of the changes, and how can we influence these changes for the better? I think that's quite important to me. Yeah.
Something more and more I feel in this maybe divisive world, whatever we want to talk about it, is actually the role that media is playing. It's influencing whoever we might be, are thinking.
Yeah, so there's kind of your mainstream or traditional media, and then you've got social media as well, and the ways in which they operate, and also the ways in which they feed each other, I think can be really interesting, sometimes pernicious, but also I suppose partly an optimist, and I want to hope that it can also work for the best. I think that what we often see is fear-based storytelling, especially in the mainstream, or traditional media, where it's like, we're afraid of technology taking over the world, or we're afraid that, people who are different are going to, catastrophically damage our society, whatever it might be. And then if you've got that fear-based kind of narrative in the traditional media, and then you've got social media platforms that are, geared towards, engagement that is based on outrage or heightened emotion, then you've got this really pernicious cycle. What I will say on the more positive side, if I may, is that I spend a lot of time talking to young people as well, and spending time on, God forbid, things like TikTok, which terrifies all of my friends and family. But I do see that there is a desire for a different type of conversation. And I think when we're able to bring people into, a slower conversation, or encourage people actually to listen to each other, and not just listen in order to tell the other person that they're wrong, but to listen to understand the other person, when we can get them to that point, I think there's some real transformation there, but it takes some time to get us there.
And I appreciate this is it's a short bit of How do you get something there? How do you reflect on that in order to realise that the conversation needs to be deeper than what you think it is?
I mean, that for me, as corny as it sounds, is partly why I love doing speaking, right? Because I get the opportunity to stand in front of a group of people, sometimes people who don't necessarily want to even listen to me, and I get to speak to them for half an hour, 45 minutes straight, and I guess I take them on a journey. I've learned how to take people on a journey that, you know, they might not necessarily expect. And so I show them, you know, the benefit of actually listening and where that might take. And then I say, hey, you see this process that you just went through here? What if you applied that to other parts of your world? You know, what if you took this approach and you didn't just pay attention to your first gut instinct? You didn't just pay attention to like the fear, but you just sat back and you allowed yourself to consider something different. And you know, it's been pretty amazing to see what happens.
So when you're looking at that room and kind of, you're speaking to them, having the conversation, are you seeing signs by the audience in terms of when they're taking it all in and they're reconsidering what are you looking for?
Oh, totally. I love it. I love seeing, especially because quite often, you know, the dress that I wear contrasts with, you know, what I might be saying, or every once in a while, and I don't do this often, but recently I tried, you know, I was wearing a hebaya, a very traditional outfit, and then I asked the room, I was like, how does everyone feel about me cussing, like saying a cuss word? And people, what I asked was, I was like, does anyone here cuss?
Yeah.
And you know, people sort of chuckled and put their hands up, and then I was like, how do you feel if and then people, and I remember somebody spoke to me afterwards, they were like, you swearing in that outfit just confused the hell out of me, and it was amazing, you know. And so what I see on people's faces is often that confusion, but in that confusion is this opportunity, right? Because they're like, what I thought was going to happen isn't happening, so now I'm curious.
Yeah.
You know, and I love that. I love seeing the curiosity. I love seeing the like that switch from boredom to interest, because you know you always get a few people that are just like whatever, right, and then you kind of you see a little flicker that, you know, that for me is like fuel, because I know then that the words I'm saying are connected. It's a real thrill.
Let me ask one last question, which I wanted to subconscious bias.
Yes.
I feel, but I feel it now becomes something which is spoken about far more than maybe it historically has been. Do we understand it, or are we still kind of at that infantile stage of just appreciating there is this thing?
I think there's quite a lot of awareness about unconscious bias now. When I first started speaking about it, I was one of the first to start speaking about it. In the mainstream, it was something that people were like, oh my god, I've never heard of it before. Now people are aware, but they don't quite know what the next step is. They're like, okay, does this just mean that you will always be biased forever? You know, how do I actually challenge it? Can I remove it? And so I think we need to go from like awareness to like implementation, mitigation, all these other things. And I reassure people, I'm like, look, we're never going to get rid of our biases, but being aware of it and then finding ways to do something about it, or to replace our biases with something more beneficial, the ones that, you know, are negative with something more positive, then actually we're sort of shifting things for the better.
Yasmin, on that note, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
Pleasure speaking as always.
Yeah.